So what you're about to see is not merely the framework that has turned thousands of average guys into top 1% men. It's more than just a 5-step formula that shows you how to go from $0 to $10,000 a month and live a life of financial, location, and time freedom. Instead, this is a monumental shift that will disrupt the financial system and the way that we live our lives forever. And today, I'm going to show you how to take full advantage of that. 2nd of November 2022, that is officially the day that the death warrant for your life was issued. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell attended a meeting of the International Monetary and Financial Committee in Washington, D.C. And the outcome of this meeting? The Federal Reserve ordering another big boost in interest rates, signaling to the world that their previous efforts to stop the skyrocketing inflation rates in the US had failed miserably. And as if that wasn't enough, the central bank raised its benchmark interest rate by 75 basis points. This was the very same rate that was almost nearly zero back in February. Now, it had jumped 3.75% in the last 8 months, which is the most aggressive string of rate hikes in decades. And the worst part is that it had no effect in controlling inflation whatsoever. It's really all just a show for you and me to believe that they're actually doing something about it, that they actually care. Now, what does this all mean? And more importantly, why does this represent the death warrant of your personal freedom, whether you live in the United States or not? Well, I believe that the world events from the last 2.5 years were not a mere coincidence. I believe that they were carefully orchestrated and are simply part of a much larger plan, a plan which name I cannot say or this video will get taken down, which is about to reach its completion. And if it reaches its completion, here's what it would represent: a complete collapse of the global economy that would destroy your buying power and get your savings to vanish in front of your eyes without you being able to do a thing about it. Complete control over your internet connection, travel allowances, bank accounts, and even heating and electricity systems in your own home. Which, by the way, is why I find it so funny when people push for fully electric cars everywhere. You know, those cars actually have kill switches in them, but most people don't want to think that far. I mean, same thing with smart meters. You know the issue with smart meters? If you say something they don't like, they can turn it off. And overall, it would throw the entire middle and lower class in such bad living conditions that they would have no option but to comply and obey the puppet masters. Because if they don't, they will not be able to afford essential items like food and rent, meaning you won't be able to survive on your own. This is a shift that is not only going to disrupt the entire financial system, but strip us of our basic freedoms. Now, how can I be so sure about these claims? Because history repeats itself, and this plan has already been executed countless times before. And you need to understand this if you want to survive and thrive in a world where doing simple things like going to a restaurant or flying to a different country will turn into a nightmare where you will only be allowed to do it if you were a good little boy and you complied. So ladies and gentlemen, let's take things back. Let's imagine you were just an average person living in the Middle Ages. You're living in the era right after the decline of the great empires such as the Romans. Towns used to be constantly attacked and looted by neighboring armies, and money was very scarce. And food was also in short supply, and your diet consisted basically of bread, if you were lucky, and beans. And you had to slave all day working for the royalty in order just to even afford a diet like that. Diseases and plagues were plenty, and the world population was rapidly declining. That was a time where you didn't live life, you merely survived it. You were in constant fear of attacks, inquisition, and famine. And ladies and gentlemen, that is why this period was known as the Dark Ages. As a peasant, which was what 99% of people were at the time, you'd view the Dark Ages as a terrible time to be alive. But for a very small part of the population, the reality was completely different. For the ones in the royalty, none of that applied to them. They had endless food, peasants working for them, and the entire population living in fear. Meaning, it was the perfect time for them to expand their power even further and perpetuate the cycle for generations to come. And how would they do that? Well, here's where you need to pay attention, because they had a very structured plan in order to accomplish this. First, they got to make sure that they mitigate the chance or the risk of anyone overthrowing them and taking their position of power. Now, how so? Well, first, they would make sure that their peasants are perpetually dependent on the work that they provide them. Because without this work, you cannot afford to live and eat. So they provided you with work that gives you just enough to survive, but not enough to ever break free of their trap. Then, they made you and the other peasants believe that working on yourself is shameful and that you should settle with having nothing and be happy with it. Settle with nothing and be happy with it. I think I've heard that said somewhere recently. back to my point. Now, how would they do that? Well, first, they would take advantage of the authority figures that people trust. Back then, it was the church and the Pope. These days, it's the little celebrity puppets. It's all of the disgraceful, dishonorable little men. I don't care if they have hundreds of millions of dollars. They sold their soul and they turned their backs on the people who put them in that position in the first place. And you can even see this going on YouTube. All of these self-improvement, finance YouTube channels that will dance and dance and dance around the real topics because all they care about is a little AdSense sponsorship money. Have you noticed that I don't have any sponsors? You don't think I've been offered millions and millions of dollars a year? Pull up my Social Blade. I'm the fastest growing YouTube channel on this side of the internet. I have been offered millions by big brands, but unlike the other guys, I will not sell my soul. And that is the first step to executing the plan. These days, as I said, it's little puppets. Back then, it was the church and the Pope. They use these authority figures to spread messages saying that getting rich is a temptation from the devil and that man is a sinful creature that falls into those temptations. And if you ever tried to go in that direction, you wouldn't be worthy of God's forgiveness. Finally, for the cherry on top, they use the most widespread education mechanism known to man to further indoctrinate people, the Bible. Since the vast majority of the world was illiterate back then, they could simply manipulate the original message to fit their narrative, and no one was the wiser. I mean, how genius is that? I gotta give it to them. And in case anyone was brave enough to speak up against them, well, they simply made sure that overnight, they were gone. And that plan worked flawlessly for nearly 500 years, which were arguably some of the worst times in history to be alive. Now let's compare that to what we're seeing happening around us today. We've got clear satanic rituals in music videos. We have working on becoming the best version of yourself being labeled as toxic masculinity. And we have the liberal woke trying to make men obey and be submissive. Bottom line, step one of the plan has been accomplished. Make men believe that working on themselves is something to be shamed and talked down on, and that feminine men instead should be praised. Step number two, take advantage of authority figures in order to propagate their agenda. And the most interesting part is, have you noticed what has happened to the individuals that decide to speak up and take a stand? Just like in the Dark Ages, the people that spoke up disappeared overnight. The same thing happens these days, except they try to make you disappear digitally. They deplatform you, they ban you, they lower your reach. Very convenient, huh? Now, this is where things start to get interesting, and the puppet masters start to get a little bit more sophisticated with their methods of manipulation. Now, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that the 2nd of November was when your death warrant was officially signed. And here is why. The last step of their plan was to get you dependent on your work to survive, while ripping away any chance you have of ever progressing financially. And they already got the majority of the world dependent on them through debt. Because when you have debt, you simply cannot afford to lose your job. So that means that you cannot afford to speak up about things that are wrong because it might cost you your job and your livelihood. You can't afford to make your boss mad. You can't afford to miss a day at work, and you cannot afford to move to a different city or a different country because it is simply too far away. So that means that you are literally tied and leashed to that job. Because here's where things get really bad. Getting the inflation rate, was anyone really stupid enough to believe it's transitory? The inflation is simply transitory. Did anyone really believe that? So that was done on purpose because now they can hike up interest rates. And here's what that means. You see, inflation works like a time bomb that gradually corrodes your buying power without you even noticing. And the best way to visualize how inflation plays out in the real world is to look at what's happening in the UK. On the 26th of September, the UK economy nearly collapsed, and the country is now sitting on the verge of a very, very sinister crisis. The country's inflation rate has gone up over 10%, the highest it has been in over 40 years. And the price of basic items like food are rising at the fastest pace in the last 5 decades. And there's even shortages of staple vegetables in the supermarkets. Basically, the average salary stayed the same while the living costs dramatically raised. And interestingly enough, that actually caused two things to happen. First, it caused a shortage in the supply of homes. Now you might be wondering, what does that have to do with things? Well, economy crises are the favorite times for the puppet masters because they can then acquire assets at huge discounts. The result? A considerable portion of the houses in the UK are being bought by oligarchs, people from the Middle East coming in, buying houses and just leaving them there to sit because they're not concerned about making money. They just want to preserve their wealth. But what that does is that pushes the regular people out of the market. It's getting to a point where home ownership is a right simply reserved for the ultra wealthy. Own nothing and be happy. That was the end goal, and we are getting closer and closer to it. That's what inflation does. It furthers the gap between the rich and the poor while cutting out the middle class in the meantime. And this is why I love people with economics degree. You know, they think they're all so smart. They kept telling me, no, quantitative easing, we need inflation. I'm like, look, just call it what it is. It's stealing from the poor. We've been doing it for thousands of years. We've been debasing the currency for thousands of years. And all that does is simply steal from the poor. You see, the poor get poorer because they are paid the same while their bills go up, and the rich get richer because the prices of their assets go up. And that's not even the worst part. Inflation caused a second massive issue in the UK. Due to the gas crisis in Europe, the citizens won't have enough money to afford the gas bill during the coming winter. Their salaries stayed the same, but their buying power got wrecked. The bills are more expensive than ever, but the numbers simply don't add up. The situation was so severe that the UK government had to step in and approve a law that limited the amount of money a family could spend on energy. And that was supposed to save over £1,000 per year for each household. However, in practice, it just makes the situation even worse. Because in order for the government to fund the energy bill, it will have to go into even more debt, driving the inflation even further. And that led to the UK economy almost collapsing overnight. And that's because the UK pension funds are invested in assets that require collateral to pay for its risk. And the whole energy funding situation sent the prices of those assets down, which then, as a result, required the UK pension funds to put more money into it as collateral to cover the new added risk. Now, they didn't have enough money to actually do that, so instead they had to turn to selling their existing assets, which then makes the price of them even lower, requiring more collateral, and this becomes an endless loop. And it only stops when all of the savings in the pension funds are gone, which means that 50% of the private savings of the entire pension system would have just gone in a blink of an eye. So the Bank of England had to step in and inject £65 billion into buying these declining assets in order to avoid a catastrophe. It saved them for now, but the thing is, the UK is still on the verge of that happening again, getting 90% of its population in a situation where they cannot afford their bills. And on the 2nd of November, when the Fed ordered the increase of the interest rates, it signaled to the world that the US is moving in the same direction. And it doesn't matter if you're based in the US or not, if their economy tanks, we're all in the same boat here. Long story short, we're nearly past the point of no return. They sealed the coffin, and it had your freedom in it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, changing tone. It is in the periods of the greatest monumental changes that the biggest opportunities arise. And those dark times paved the way for the most prosperous period we have ever experienced, the Renaissance. A lot of the peasants who used to work slave-like jobs went on to become the bourgeoisie, who enjoyed more wealth than they knew what to do. And a few men went on to become what I like to refer to as the Renaissance man, creating inventions that still deeply impact the world to this day. It was the greatest social shift in history, and history repeats itself. We're about to experience the same. The impetus that served as fuel for the Renaissance was the sentiment that men needed to be men again. They were tired of this negative view towards men labeling our natural ambition of becoming our best versions and achieving great things as something sinful or to be ashamed of. And this sentiment instigated a movement that got men back on their path, working to achieve their true potentials. And this very same movement is happening today. You can see it gaining momentum and growing exponentially all over social media. Millions of men deciding to work on becoming the best version of themselves. Men deciding that simply going to school and then slaving away at work for their entire lives is not what they were set out to do. And this message is being promoted by the strong men that are brave enough to speak up against the craziness of today's society. This movement will be the fuel for the new coming Renaissance, the digital Renaissance. It is inevitable, and it will be magnitudes larger than the last one. You see, during the Renaissance, there was one specific family, the Medicis, who had a fortune so big that they created their own bank and funded the entire Renaissance for over 30 years. Now compare that to today's standard and you'll see that their fortune is a relatively moderate one. It's estimated that across 4 decades from the 1430s to 1470s, the Medici family spent the equivalent of $500 million, which was an unimaginable amount of wealth compared to the average income at the time, but quite frankly, not very substantial if compared to today's wealth. The Medici's family resources would put them at roughly the 1200th spot in the world's richest list today. I mean, they would look very unimpressively rich if you compared them to someone like Mark Zuckerberg, who's worth $47 billion. And I mean, if you were to plot a chart comparing them to Elon Musk, who's worth $219 billion, you'd barely be able to see their wealth represented in such a chart. I mean, for the price of this yacht, the Medici family fueled the Renaissance for over 30 years. And listen, if this amount of cash, which is pretty much nothing compared to the amount of cash out there today, created the period with the biggest opportunities humanity has ever seen, well, I mean, then just imagine the size of opportunities that we created during the digital Renaissance. It will be like nothing you have ever seen. But the problem is, time is ticking. You see, inflation is like a ticking time bomb, and we are past the point of no return. The explosion is imminent, and you can no longer wait for tomorrow, next week, let alone next month, because the new digital dark age is already here. You must escape and take back control of your life. Now the question is, how do you escape? Well, there's only one way. Become a new Renaissance man that gets to play by his own rules. That is a strong masculine individual that not only has financial freedom, but has location and time freedom as well, which all three together put him in the top 1% of men. The idea is very simple. If you don't have money, you are doomed because you will never be able to afford freedom. It takes money to be free. It takes money to be able to afford flights and hop around the world to different countries in case your country decides to go a little crazy. It takes money to speak up against tyranny and the BS agenda from the puppets around you. And you cannot do that when your job is on the line and you risk pissing off your employer. So if you do not get this in order, you will never truly be free. But only money is not enough, because if you don't have location freedom, you will always be at the mercy of the puppet masters. You see, if the puppet masters say that you cannot go to the restaurants anymore in your city, well then, no more restaurants for you. If the puppet masters say that you can't go to work, that's it. You have to stay at home, even if that means losing your business, your family-run business that has been passed down from generation to generation. You gotta comply. You're stuck. And if the puppet masters say no more meat and take out all the meat from the supermarkets, well, you're tied down geographically. You could be making $3 million a year and think you're some hotshot, think that you're some stud, you're someone important, you make a lot of money. I don't care. You are still a no one because the government has you by your balls. You are stuck. You are trapped. You cannot escape. You can be stuck in the prison of your own city. You might be in a cushy, swanky penthouse apartment. You're still in a prison. So if you want to live in your own reality where if things go a little crazy in your country and your government decides to be a little bit tyrannical, not that they would ever do that, or, they've done that recently, or, been test driving it to see, just how stupid people will be and whether they'd actually fall for it. A lot of you guys failed, by the way, and shame on you that did. Because if they try to do something, well, too bad. You are tied geographically. You can't do anything. You need to be agile. You need to be able to move if things get crazy. You need location freedom. That is a non-negotiable. And then we move on to the next thing, which is time freedom, because ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you trade your time for money directly, because listen to me, there's no such thing as passive income. Passive income doesn't exist. It is a whole load of BS. Passive income is simply putting a system in place. And at a certain point, that system breaks. So don't think that you can just make money without putting time in. But the point is, if your income is directly tied to the time that you put in, well, then you're still a slave. Look, it doesn't matter how much money you make and the fact that you can fly first class anywhere in the world. If you don't have time freedom, you have the illusion of freedom. You've got the chips, right? You have the chips. They gave you the chips, but you can never cash them in. As the saying goes, no man is more enslaved than the one who falsely believes in his own freedom. And that's where a majority of the doctors, lawyers, dentists, engineers, developers, and most of the prestigious professionals fall into. Ladies and gentlemen, even the football players that you worship, that you think, oh, it would be a dream to become a football player or a basketball player or all this stuff, they can't pack up and leave when they want to. At the end of the day, someone still tells them, you arrive at this location at this time, every single week, every single day, you have to show up to practice at this time, and they have to comply. That's not freedom to me. So the question then becomes, how do you become the top 1% of men who get to enjoy All three: financial freedom, location freedom, and time freedom. What does it take in order to get there? Well, for some people, they might look at someone like me who got to the top at a very young age and might think that I was blessed with an extremely high IQ, or that I had a rich father backing me up, or that maybe I just got lucky. Whatever you might think, the fact is that most people think that I have something that they don't. All of those feelings come from the fact that you think that we're different, when quite frankly, we're not. I'm you, you're me. We are no different. The only difference is that you may be the version of me 6 years ago when I was first starting my journey, the version of me that was the 16-year-old scared kid who just wanted to take care of him and his single mom. And the only difference from the 16-year-old Eman from the Eman you see today, enjoying the spoils that come with being a part of the top 1%, the only thing that sets us apart is that throughout those years, I've implemented 5 specific success traits that ultimately led me to where I am today. The only thing stopping you from becoming a new Renaissance man and working your way to the top is having those same 5 success traits in your life. And if you don't know what those 5 success traits are, let me show you. Now, the first is knowledge from those who did it before you. Now listen to me, if you try to learn everything on your own, you will make your life 100 times harder, and I'm not exaggerating there. Smart people learn from their mistakes, whereas wise people learn from the mistakes of others. And the Renaissance is a perfect example of that. During the Dark Ages, people tried to do everything in their own way, and the result was that for over 5 centuries, they weren't capable of achieving any remarkable progress in any area. Whether that was science, engineering, architecture, business, you name it. Those were 5 lost centuries for human development. They didn't get to learn from the people that came before them because, quite frankly, they didn't have access to that sort of information and knowledge because most of them were illiterate. And quite frankly, knowledge was extremely scarce back then. Now, when people started to once again gain access to the works from the great people that came before them, so that way they could study it and implement this lost knowledge in their own work, some of the biggest breakthroughs in all areas of life happened after that. To this day, some of the most beautiful buildings and architecture in the entire world come from the Renaissance era, some of which were directly inspired from Greek architecture, for example. Again, back then, most people simply didn't have access to that sort of knowledge, so they didn't really have much of a choice whether they were going to learn from the people that came before them. Learning on their own was their only option, and unfortunately, we saw the results of this 500-year-long experiment of trying to figure things out yourself, and the results were pretty mediocre. Today, you don't get to use this as an excuse because knowledge is abundant, and making the mistake of trying to learn everything by yourself could take your journey to the top from a few years to a few decades or even a lifetime. Are you willing to risk the trajectory of your entire life just to save a few bucks here and there instead of paying to learn from the ones who have already achieved what you want to accomplish? Look, that's a decision only you can make. Now, the second trait, and maybe the most important one, is a business. The truth is simple. There is no job that will provide you with financial freedom, location freedom, and time freedom. In every single job you can get, you will only get 2 out of the 3 at best. You can think about the most prestigious careers like lawyers and doctors, but I've already mentioned those. And in general, those are sensible, stable jobs. But as I said, think even bigger. The pro athletes, the Hollywood actors, even the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Do they have financial freedom? I mean, sure. Do they have location freedom? Up to debate. Look, as I said, if you're a pro athlete during the season or an actor during the filming of a movie, you cannot be traveling around. You are stuck to that same city until the whole project or season ends. And time freedom is even worse. Fortune 500 CEOs are notoriously known for working 80-hour weeks and having no life outside of work whatsoever. Even though they have the money and power to afford and do whatever they want, they don't have the most important piece of the equation, which is the time to do so. This is why I always say making a bunch of money doesn't make you a top 1% man. The real new Renaissance men get to enjoy all 3 of those luxuries: financial freedom, location freedom, and time freedom. And there's only one way to achieve that: through an online business. That's because due to its own nature, an online business is not location dependent. That means that from the get-go, you can work from anywhere and you're not limited to selling to your own city or region, which means that it's way easier to scale up to $10,000 months and upwards than any other type of job or business. And the cherry on top is that you can outsource all of the work to other people, so that way you can escape the rat race and stop trading time for money. And it's actually super easy to outsource the fulfillment when you pick the right business model. And this is really where most people get it wrong. They choose extremely complex business models that are super hard to fulfill and require tons of cash and work up front to get off the ground, such as developing a software or app which will all require months of development and constant maintenance, or having an e-commerce or dropshipping business that is a nightmare to fulfill, and you have to deal with an endless stream of problems that most people never think about, such as shipping, product quality, finding the right suppliers, batching orders, customer support, import and export tax, international customs, delays in delivery, the list goes on and on. And by the way, I ran an e-commerce business for years, eyewear company called Gadget, and then you have to remember that my main business is my software company, Agency Flow. Along with that, I recently just bought another software company. So ladies and gentlemen, I speak from experience. I deal with these problems daily. So trust me, different than 99% of people online, I'm speaking from personal experience here. So what you should do instead is find a simple service that businesses are willing to pay for and that you can quickly learn how to deliver or easily find someone to deliver it for you. So this way you can get started with zero and you have literally no risk of losing money because you're not investing anything, and the only way that you can fail is if you stop trying. If you can try, you can succeed, because the only way to fail is to stop trying. Let me give you 3 examples of very easy to fulfill services that you can learn this week and start offering it to businesses who are willing to pay anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 a month for it. The first one is as simple as it gets, which is editing short form videos, TikToks, YouTube shorts, you name it. I mean, look at all of the content creators you see here on YouTube. I mean, pretty much all of them have a TikTok account and pretty much all of them don't post enough, which is a big growth opportunity that they're missing, and they know that. And the only reason they're not posting more often, even though they know they should, is because they simply don't have the time. So what you can do is simply take the videos they already have recorded for YouTube, cut them into 15 to 60 second clips, add subtitles, and post them on TikTok. Do you think you can learn how to do that? You don't have to script anything or deal with creating any new content. It's all based on videos that were already recorded, edited, and published. And just by taking those videos and cutting them into short clips and posting on TikTok, you can double a channel's growth and views, which means you can easily get paid a few $1,000s in order to do that. In fact, depending on the volume you can produce, you can get paid dozens of thousands of dollars a month for it from multiple clients. And I can speak from experience. I have 60 full-time people in my content redistribution team. These people are putting out TikToks, shorts, clips, you name it, and they all get paid $1,500 starting all the way up to $4,500 a month, depending on their performance and their output levels. And the demand for such services is enormous and growing. And once again, I can speak from experience. A couple of weeks ago, I nearly paid another agency $250,000 a year, $20,000 a month, in order to create even more content for me, because this agency owner that only started a year ago with no background experience started editing short form content for a big creator and then started hiring people and actually pitched me the services. So I was going to pay $20,000 a month. So when I say this stuff to you, I know the market very well. I can speak from experience, and that's just one service. So that's the real beauty of it. With a service like this, you finally achieve financial, location, and time freedom. And inside of the Great Agency community, we have a few hundred people making bank with just stuff like this. I mean, Dylan is the perfect example of that. He stumbled on a potential client that needed this service and signed him for $1,500 a month. Then he found a contractor to outsource this service to for $75 a week. He gets to keep all the profit while getting the service delivered for him by someone else. Also, notice the word stumbled, as in he didn't even look for this client. There are so many businesses out there that need services, not only this, but a few more that I'm going to mention, that you can just end up stumbling into getting a client. It's like selling food to a starving crowd. You see, you don't need years and years and years and a college degree, slaving away in a 9 to 5 to work your way up to the top when you're 57 to make it to the top 1%. In fact, if you want to become a new Renaissance man, that is the complete opposite path to what you should take. In fact, let me give you another example of a very easy service to sell and fulfill, which is email marketing. There are thousands of brands out there investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad budgets a month to grow an email list, and they never take full advantage of that precious asset because, again, they don't have enough time to put into it. And that's a super valuable activity for them. Imagine getting paid for writing simple emails. And I'm not saying I recommend it, but the interesting part is that there are now AI robots. There are these AI robots that can actually write content for you, and they're extremely good at doing so. Meaning you don't even have to outsource to someone because you can have an actual AI robot doing it for you. Now you do have to give the robot a sentence or two on what you want the email to be about. But after that, the technology is getting so good that you just press a button and the rest is written for you. And I know it might sound like some Black Mirror thing, but it's actually something already happening. In fact, a good part of the content you read online might actually be written by robots already, but you just don't know about it. Inside of the Gradiency community, we already have so many students making incredible sums of money every single month by offering this service to their clients. Finally, another simple service that you can offer to clients is running paid ads. That is the one online service that has created more 6- and 7-figure a year earners than anyone else. And this is our bread and butter at Gradiency, and we have literally thousands of students who are making a full-time income with this service. Just like Michael, who completed his 3rd month with this new business model at a total revenue of $37K at over 85% profit margin. Or Vaclav, who went from delivering Uber Eats to $10,000 a month in May to $57,000 a month in December. Or Dwayne, who closed his very first client at 7,800 Canadian dollars a month. Making $10,000 a month online from anywhere in the world doesn't have to be as complex and scary as most people make it out to be. You don't need a fancy website or thousands of dollars to invest in ads. You don't need to build an online store, create your brand, and import products from China. You don't need to spend months developing an app or software. All you need is a handful of clients paying you anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 a month for a service that is simple to deliver. So now that we have the business sorted, the 3rd success trait you need is community. And look, it's not for the reason that you think. You see, most people preach that in order for you to succeed, you need this, you need to build a strong network around you. You need to focus on networking. That's terrible advice. Networking is BS. Networking is great once you're a millionaire, multi-millionaire, well-established. Then having a network is great, but to actually get you to 10K a month, forget networking. The sole purpose of having a strong community is not so you can have connections or find someone to partner up with. You don't need a business partner. The reason you want to be a part of a community is due to the fact that when people are working day in and day out, and these people are around you, you see these people, you will be ashamed not to do the same. You're not going to want to be the only one who's slacking off and having all your peers think that you're lazy. So you're going to put in the work as well, even when you don't feel like it. You see, the number one reason most people fail online is number one, they choose the wrong business model, and number two, they simply don't put the work in. Even though they know exactly what needs to be done, they come up with excuses. Or they find busy work so that way they can lie to themselves that they're doing something productive while in reality they're just avoiding doing what needs to be done. So the way to make sure that you don't get caught in this trap is by having a strong community around you. Because when you do, and everyone else is putting in work, you will not want to be the outlier. And by doing that, you're essentially hacking discipline. Look, as I always say, we never perform at the level of our maximum capacity, but rather at the level of our minimum standards. And by surrounding yourself with the right people, you're setting your minimum standards to a level where success is inevitable. And there's also one last factor that plays into this. When you're exposed day in and day out to people closing $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 deals, all different types of people, men, women, people who have worked 10 years in completely different industries and just migrated to the online world, kids straight out of high school, or sometimes even in high school still, people from North America, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, India, Nepal, South Africa, from the countries you didn't even know existed. Basically, people from all walks of life successfully getting results. It starts to feel normal to you, and you realize that you too can get those sort of results. It's like the 4-minute mile. No one thought it was possible to run a mile in under 4 minutes. For decades, people tried to do it, and no one could break that 4-minute mark. But once one man did it, literally everyone started doing it as well, because they now had witnessed that it was possible. It's the exact same reason as to why the Renaissance men weren't scattered across multiple different cities throughout the whole European continent, but rather concentrated in a handful of important cities like Florence, because there they were exposed to the incredible works of other Renaissance men that the people outside of those cities wouldn't have thought was possible. So if you want to achieve something spectacular, expose yourself to other people who are accomplishing it day in and day out. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the power of community. And next, we have accountability. Now, I'll keep this one short. Some people get to the top, and I'm just going to be honest with you. Most people don't. And that's because the ones that don't simply aren't willing to take responsibility for their actions. If you were born poor, that's not your fault. If you're still poor 30 years later, you have no one else to blame except for yourself. And you can either face this reality or run away from it and pretend it's not true. And the ones that run away are the ones that never make it to the top. It's just that simple. I can give you the exact step-by-step plan to achieve everything that you've always dreamed of. And I will give it to you, but only you can walk each step of the plan. Just like in a gym, you can have the best training plan and the best diet plan, but if you don't execute it, you won't get results. And I think we can all agree on that. So now it is your time to take responsibility for where you are in life, but more importantly, where you are going to be from now on. And this directly ties into our last success trait, which is self-improvement. Listen, there's a twisted secret to this entire journey of becoming a new Renaissance man that no one really talks about when they talk about making money, which is you can make all the money in the world and still feel broke. You can have all the friends you want, but still feel lonely. You can have everything and still feel like you're failing. The truth is, most of us didn't really grow up in an environment where we were exposed to success early on, and we're not really wired to know how to deal with it. And this can sabotage you from the inside out and stop you from succeeding in life. And that is why self-improvement is so important. It is the only way out of that rabbit hole. And we have to rewire our brains into accepting success instead of trying to put ourselves in the way of it. And that's exactly why I brought in Hamza for our second episode, by the way, who in my opinion is one of the most gifted individuals in this world when it comes to getting you aware of your shortcomings and rewiring yourself in order to unlock your full potential. I personally had to work deeply on my own shortcomings in order to achieve success, and you will too. And that's why you simply can't pick and choose a few of these traits out of the 5 success traits. You need to have them all. Leaving out just one of them will be the same as not having one out of the 5 in the first place. And it will always be the bottleneck that stops you from becoming the best version of yourself and working your way to the top. So this is the map to become a new Renaissance man. And when you achieve its final destination, you too will become a new Renaissance man yourself. And you'll get to enjoy all the spoils that come with becoming a top 1% man. And I'm not referring to specifically just money here. I mean, after all, majority of you watching this didn't get started in this journey just for money, but rather because of the things that being at the top can provide you with. For some of you, it might be the ability to finally quit your job so that way you can stop working on someone else's dream and start working on your own. Now, it might be the ability of working on something that actually fulfills you, allows you to take care of the ones around you, and enjoy a lifestyle of freedom where you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, without having to comply to stupid rules and BS bureaucracy. Basically, what it means to finally become a new Renaissance man is that you'll finally get back ownership of your life and get to live it in your own terms, by your own rules. You can either decide to walk this path by yourself, figuring everything out through your own mistakes, or you can learn it from someone else who's already walked this path and let them show you the shortcuts, because they do exist. And notice, by choosing option 1, you're already giving up on the first success trait, which is the knowledge, learning from the ones who did it before you. And I'm not saying you need to learn it from me, by the way. There's definitely people out there, and you can learn from people that will teach you individually, one of these skills. So listen, that's definitely an option. But what is not an option is trying to learn everything on your own. Now, if you do want to learn from me, I'm going to provide you with all 5 of the success traits today. First, let me give you the knowledge and the business. As I mentioned multiple times during this video, I have an education platform called Grow Your Agency. Inside of our platform, we've taught around 10,000 people to date on how to start an online business from scratch and scale it to $10,000 a month in our flagship program, Agency Navigator. This provides them with a financial location and time freedom to become a top 1% man. Agency Navigator is the knowledge you need in order to start a location independent online business from scratch and scale it to a full-time income in the shortest time frame possible, even if you have no previous experience. Our average student takes 47 days to sign their first paying client, and the average client retainer for our students is $2,000 a month. And the real beauty is that after they sign their first client, it takes them half the amount of time in order to sign their second client. And at this point, they're already at a full-time income. So I want you to take this example from Jackson to truly understand this business model. He signed his first client for $2,000 a month 3 months ago. He's now been paid a total of $6,000 from this one client alone. And he's still going to continue to get paid from this very same client for months, potentially years to come. And think about how much this one client can generate him in its entire lifetime. Dozens and dozens of thousands of dollars, and all because he sold this client once. And all he has to do is deliver the service, which can be done very easily by outsourcing it to an experienced contractor using something that I called contractor arbitrage and teach in great detail inside of Agency Navigator. Now here's another example. This is Hamish, who managed to sign his first client just 5 short days after joining Agency Navigator. Again, our average student takes 47 days to sign their first client, but we do have some outliers who managed to make it in even less time than that. Now it was a small one, only $500 plus $50 for each client he brings into the business, but one that can grow big over time because of the performance incentive. Now we teach exactly how to structure those performance incentives inside the course as well. Our methodology works so well because Agency Navigator is structured in basically 3 cycles that you go through. The first one is the foundation cycle, and here you basically learn how to set everything up, both your business and your mind. That is, how to choose a service to offer, how to choose a niche, how to get paid, how to prepare yourself to onboard clients, how to find experienced people to deliver the services for you. Basically everything you need to get up and running. but also what mindsets you need to adopt in order to succeed in this game, how to prepare yourself mentally, how to structure your days, and all the mindset stuff that is just as important and no one talks about. And after this module, you'll have to set up all the structure you need in order to start signing clients and getting paid. So logically, the second cycle is how to get clients. Now this cycle gives you the step-by-step action plan to start signing clients, which is where to find potential clients, exactly how to reach out to them, what to say to open the conversation and get them in a Zoom meeting with you, and then finally exactly what to say during your meeting in order to get your potential clients to trust you, and as a result, sign them and get them to pay you on the spot. Now after this module, finding clients will never be a problem for you ever again. You will have acquired the skill of attracting people who want to give you money on demand. And finally, our last cycle covers how to deliver the services. In this module, we go in depth on the best practices of service delivery and teach you step by step how to master the service that I consider to be the most profitable and scalable, which is paid ads. And after this module, you become a master at getting killer results for your clients through paid advertising, even if you have never ran an ad before. Now, when you apply this knowledge, you'll have a business that will be ready to pay you anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 a month while providing you with time and location freedom. So this checks two of the boxes already, the knowledge and the business. And I'm very proud to say that at Agency Navigator, we have a level of community that you are not going to find anywhere else in the world. Inside of it, you're gonna meet people like Marcus, who scaled his agency to $30,000 a month profit. Guys like Alex, who signed 6 clients in 10 days, or guys like Jamie, who signed a $7,000 deal that he outsourced for $1,200 while enjoying life on a freaking paradise island. That, my friends, is a new Renaissance man. So if you just go to the community, search for wins, and scroll through, you're gonna see the volume of results other students are getting. And when you join Agency Navigator, you're gonna be exposed to results like this on a daily basis, which will get you used to seeing people charge $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 for services, and you'll start to adopt the confidence that you too can charge those prices. And second, it will get you doing the work that needs to be done. And if that wasn't enough, you will also have your questions answered by students who are further ahead of you in your journey. Again, putting in practice that it is important to learn from the ones that are further ahead than you. And then after community, we have one of our most overlooked traits, which is accountability. Now, the reason why Agency Navigator has such high success rate is because we have 4 levels of accountability. Now, the first 2 happen inside the community, where you have peer-to-peer accountability with people who are starting this journey in the same level as you and at the same time as you. Then we have alumni accountability, where you get to learn from the students that are further ahead than you. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Every single week, we have multiple live Q&A calls on sales, service delivery, outreach, mindset, and accountability. We call this expert accountability because you can literally go there, unmute yourself, and ask one of our expert coaches whatever you want. And here's what happens when you go into the Q&A calls. Ask good questions and apply what the expert coaches tell you. Youst got his first client at $2,500 a month after applying what one of our coaches told him to do in one of the Q&A calls. And look what happened just 2 days after. He closed another client at $6,000 a month. He went from $0 to $8,500 a month in just a matter of 3 days. And what I'm most proud of is that every single one of our coaches have actually gone through our programs, made hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, become successful, and then in their free time decide to help out a few hours a week coaching for the program because they know just how life-changing it is. In fact, I even have student interviews with them from almost 3 years ago posted on my YouTube channel. Here's the one with John Danes, who's the owner of 2 very successful lead generation agencies and is currently one of our coaches that helps students with agency operations, sales, and service delivery. And here's the one with John Gabb, who also went through the program and scaled his agency to multiple 5 figures and now coaches our students on mindset at Agency Navigator. Having these people at your disposal, having them as people to lean on whenever you get stuck, is the difference between the people that acquire knowledge and the ones that acquire knowledge and actually go out and implement it and get results. And the cherry on top is we have a level of accountability that you will never find in any online program less than $10,000. You're not going to find it at a university degree and nothing. Now, most people don't know this, but when you join Agency Navigator, you actually get a student success concierge rep that is assigned to your profile. And they're going to help you one-on-one along your journey. They're going to have a 30-minute kickoff call with you right away when you join the program, followed by a 1-month check-in call, a 3-month check-in call, as well as a 6-month check-in call to make sure that you are accountable and keeping on the right track throughout your journey of becoming a new Renaissance man. By the way, these are not just any concierge members. These are not just any coaches. So far, we've had more than 10,000 people applying to work with us in this specific position, and we have hired less than 10. And we run the application process for this position almost weekly at this point in order to find the best talent out there. Ladies and gentlemen, it is literally easier to get accepted into Harvard than it is to get accepted to be a coach to our students. And that's why we call them the Student Success Concierge. This is how serious we take this position and the level of accountability that you are going to have inside of Agency Navigator. And then we move on to our last trait, which is self-improvement. And that was really the one area where I felt that Agency Navigator might need a little refresh or was a little lacking. So I thought to myself, how could I fill this gap and offer my students the best self-improvement experience they could ever have? And that's when I got in contact with my buddy Hamza, who we hosted on the second episode of the Digital Renaissance, and we worked out something incredible for you guys. So Hamza has been quietly working on a secret project for a few months now. He decided it was time to take his self-improvement content to a whole new dimension. He knows, just like you, there's a lot of people out there who want to start their business or a side hustle. However, they face mad resistance when it comes to transitioning from working a normal job, or even from not having any work at all, to starting their own business. There's a lot of moving pieces, and it's very easy to get distracted on things that are not going to move the needle forward. So what Hamza did is he developed a system of self-improvement and productivity for young men who are starting their own business. And with it, you'll manage to transition from employee to business owner in a matter of weeks, something that usually takes people months to get used to. And he's officially launching a program teaching the system in early 2023. But I decided to buy the rights for this highly anticipated program so that way I could add it onto the Digital Renaissance as a bonus, so that way I could deliver on all 5 of the success traits you need to hit 10K a month in the next year. This way, nothing is left. With all of this, you have everything it takes to become the full package. So to sum everything up, this is the action plan for becoming a new Renaissance man and starting a business that will provide you with financial, location, and time freedom. With this exact same action plan, we have kids straight out of high school, as well as people who could barely speak English successfully starting their online businesses and achieving their financial freedom while also enjoying time and location freedom. In short, becoming a new Renaissance man. And if you had this exact step-by-step action plan at your disposal, do you think that it would be out of this world for you to achieve the same? And that is a question that only you can answer. Now look, every single day we have dozens of students joining Agency Navigators for $1,500. And in early 2023, we are going to transition to a subscription model where you're actually going to have to pay $1,500 every year in order to have access to Agency Nav. And it makes sense. I mean, we have 7 coaching calls a week, the recording, the custom platform, all of the tools, the Student Success Concierge. It's a very, very big operation. So for right now, it is a one-time fee, but we can't keep doing this forever. So in 2023, we're transitioning to a subscription model. And by the way, we already made that shift to a subscription model in our higher level program, by the way. Now, when it comes to Hamza's Entrepreneur Productivity Program, no one has ever had access to his content before, and he's going to be launching it early in 2023 for $750. Now, I'm going to give you a one-time deal specifically for those of you that have attended the Digital Renaissance. Today, when I open the cart for this offer, you're going to get access to Agency Navigator, the private student community, the weekly Q&A sessions, the 4 levels of accountability, including the one-on-one Student Success Concierge, and you're also going to get Hamza's Entrepreneur Productivity course. Basically, everything we just discussed. And the total price for this offer is $2,250. And this is not some fake inflated price that no one has ever paid for. Again, we have dozens of students joining Agency Navigator every single day at $1,500. And when Hamza launches his course in a few months, it will be $750. And to be honest, $2,250 would still be a steal, knowing that our average student gets their first paying client within 47 days, and they usually range at $2,000 a month retainer. However, you're not going to be paying the total of $2,250 for this offer. In fact, you're not even going to be paying the full price of $1,500 for Agency Navigator. When I open this offer in a second, you are going to be getting this full package at only $995. That is a 65% discount from the full price of this offer. However, this is only going to be available until next Monday. After that, Agency Navigator will go back to its regular price of $1,500, and you will never be able to have the chance to access the extra bonus program from Hamza ever again. But there's a catch. Here's the deal. We don't have enough hands to give immediate one-on-one concierge access to everyone who joins this offer. Last time we ran an event like this, we had 2,000 people join Agency Navigator. That's why we decided for the first 400 people who buy today, they will get VIP access to the calendars of our student success concierge for the one-on-one accountability calls. That means that you'll be able to book a call with them for this week already. And having the opportunity to have them coach you one-on-one as you go through the program could be the difference between you fast-tracking your way to financial location and time freedom instead of spinning in circle for months. Let me repeat again, every single one of our students gets access to a one-on-one concierge representative, but I cannot promise you that they have availability to speak to you this month. So the sooner you talk to them, the sooner you will achieve the results that you want. So if you're part of the first 400 who take this offer, then you are going to get preferential access to their calendars, which guarantees that they will have availability for you within the first 7 days. Now you can find the link to claim this offer in the description below if you're watching this after the premiere, or if you're watching the premiere live right now, I'll personally drop the link in the live chat in 3, 2, 1 now. Then when you click the link, you'll get redirected to the sales page where you can see all the details of the program. We also have a full team of people ready to help you live in case you have any question. Now the fact is the time is ticking and the window of opportunity to escape the new dark ages is closing in day by day. We've reached a point where inflation is out of control and none of the actions of the puppet politicians implemented are having any effects in getting it under control. The longer we stay in this situation, the closer we get to a total economic breakdown, and when that happens, none of what we just discussed will be useful anymore. So you either free yourself now or you regret the decision for the rest of your life. So this is your last chance of escaping and becoming a new Renaissance man. So I suggest you act now because tomorrow may be too late. Now let's be real here. Black Friday is in 4 days, and you can either spend your hard-earned money buying useless crap that will only consume even more of your already scarce time, or you can use that same money to invest in something that will actually take you places in life. And by the way, you literally have no financial risk whatsoever investing in Agency Navigator. That's because we trust this program so much, we have a full 100% money back guarantee within the first 14 days. And by the way, let me make something very clear to you. Most people have no money back guarantee, or what they have is a action-based guarantee, which sounds so nice. The full money back guarantee, action-based, except the actions is like, hey, you have to do 5,000 of this specific task and be able to prove it, and then you can get your money back. We have a full 100% no questions asked money back guarantee within 14 days. I do not want your money if you come into the program and you are not blown away. I have built my reputation for years and years and years, and the reason I've gotten to this point in life is by always doing the right thing. And there have been countless times I could have made a lot more money but not done things in a way that I would have been proud of. So as I said, that is why we have a full 100% money back guarantee within 14 days. Now, I'm gonna leave you with a final note here. Some people might say that the sole reason I ran this event was to sell my program at the end. And yeah, sure, if I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars for the filming location in London, if I'm giving away over $10,000 in prizes, and if I'm spending a bunch of money in ads to actually get more eyeballs on this event, then yeah, I guess I might as well make a small return out of it. But what most people don't realize is the risk that comes with running an event like this, where I'm exposing the puppet masters and all of the tyranny. Those are the topics that YouTube's favorite content creators will never speak about, because we all know this is the exact type of content that gets people banned and canceled. And I'll be just very transparent with you. From this event, maybe I might make twice what I do in a normal month. And cool, sure, I made a little bit of extra money, or I could have done nothing, not spent the tens of hours that I had to on researching and making sure that I put this together in an engaging, interesting way for you guys. And not to mention the literal hundreds of hours that my 3-person editing team had to spend to put this together for you guys. So I could have not done all of that and just waited 2 months and I would have made the exact same amount. Look, last month I was in Mexico with my team for Max's wedding, who's actually our sales coach at Agency Navigator. We spent a few days and then a week in Miami without doing any work whatsoever. And that very same month was a record-breaking month for us at GYA, without me ever posting any of our programs, not even a single time. Ladies and gentlemen, I have my Agency Navigator program link in maybe one video on all of YouTube. I do not promote my program in any of my YouTube videos. Go look at my last 10 YouTube videos. You won't find a link. The reason we get so many students is quite frankly just word of mouth. Our program gets such good results that people tell all of their friends about it. I mean, I'm in a very fortunate position where one of my businesses continues to grow without me even ever marketing it. So the reason I say all of this is because I'm good. GYA is good. But me throwing this event for you guys and trying to open your guys' eyes is putting a massive target on me. Listen to me, I could very easily be chilling on a beach somewhere, enjoying my wealth as all of my friends and all of my peers have told me I rightly deserve. But quite frankly, putting out this message is bigger than any of us. And I feel like I have a duty as probably one of the only people left who actually had the balls to spread a message like this that hasn't been deplatformed or banned. I feel like I have the duty to put this out to you guys. And if I really want to accomplish my mission of reforming the education, it's times like this I have to be in integrity and speak out. And in life, you always have two options. Either doing the thing that is easy or doing the thing that is right. And I've promised myself that I will always do the thing that is right over the thing that is easy. And I really hope that you take that same decision. And if you do, I'll see you at the top. And this is the Digital Renaissance.